It's the KwinnPop Podcast. I am Peter Dawson, and I'm joined by
James Bullock, and we are just messing up already.
When are we going to talk?
That's all, folks.
We've been, as of this recording, we've been dipping into the 2018 liquor a little early.
Yeah.
Although by the time this comes out, it'll be 2018. So hello from the previous year.
We are soulfully festive right now.
Oh, Lordy.
Oh, Lordy, yes.
So we're going to talk a bit about video games and movies this week. We're not going to talk about TV, partially because video games is going to be huge this week, and we have a feeling that movies probably is too.
Yeah, and especially, we're not reviewing Charlie Brown's Christmas this year either, so.
No. Well, it's always time to have a party with Charlie Brown and friends.
Yeah. I recently, just to get off topic already, I recently saw on YouTube, this grown-up version of Charlie Brown, an animated thing. It was like a little animated short, and Charlie Brown goes back to town, and, everybody screwed up. He's just so happy to be able to get out of town now.
Yeah, that's about right. Before they did Riverdale on CW, there was a TV pilot called Back to Riverdale, which has Jughead and Archie and company moving home and just screwing up all their lives. And it was something to behold.
That really ties in nicely into 2017 gaming, too, because some ideas were really screwed up this year.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a bit about 2017 in gaming, some of our favorite games, some of our least favorite, most disappointing, most surprising, hereabouts. I mean, we kind of went into this thinking about what our best game, our worst game, most surprising, and most disappointing was going to be.
Right.
I didn't play too many bad games this year, so my disappointing and worst are probably going to be the same. Even though it's probably not going to be fair for it in some respect, because there's absolutely worse games out there. I just haven't played them.
Right.
So I'm just going to call it my most disappointing. But yeah, we'll talk about that. So James, do you want to go first with your favorite game of 2017, or do you want to start with the worst and then go to the best?
Worst, like I said, I actually want to give it a pass on the worst. I think we started with the best this time, and I think we both can agree one of our favorite games, and my personal favorite, after much debate in my own mind, Yakuza 0 is my favorite game of 2017, hands down. Like I said, the closest thing I had was Persona 5. And let's make a note real quick. The reason that we're not saying the best games overall, we're just giving our own personal opinion because we both don't have Nintendo Switches. So we neither really play Breath of the Wild or Super Mario Odyssey completely. So we can't really say this is the best game for us. Yakuza 0 was an incredible experience. I cannot believe that they not only went back in time and presented an entirely new aspect of the game, but they also delivered on building a foundation for a remake that was Kiwami, and gave us so much extra stuff that you could spend countless hours of playing just beyond the main story. And of course, if you like the usual Yakuza games, they got all the great storylines, they got all the great fighting, and of course, the ability to play with Goro Majima for the first time was enough to put it over the top for me. Yeah, Yakuza 0, hands down, one of the best experiences I've had, not only in 2017 in gaming, but also this entire generation thus far.
In principle, I can totally agree with you, because Yakuza 0 is definitely one of my favorites, not my favorite. Shocking turn. But, wow. I mean, we did talk on the podcast before how much we liked Kiwami, and I think one of the reasons I didn't pick 0 as my favorite was said in that podcast, actually, because I mentioned that I thought Kiwami took some of the stuff in 0 that didn't quite work and polished it. Mm-hmm. So in that respect alone, even though 0 was a more original story, Kiwami, took some of the gameplay aspects and improved upon it. But I mean, 0 did a really good job with its prequel. It was very fascinating. I mean, it created some weird continuity things that they kind of addressed in Kiwami.
That was the most interesting aspect, was the fact that they kind of followed up so well with Kiwami and knowing what they did with 0. From some plot perspective, even from side quests.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then just both characters, Kiryu and Majima, they have, just in their side quests, these credible love interests that are just adorable, and you feel really bad for them when you know they're not canon, so they're not going to get a romance. between what was her name, Marina, the assistant at the real estate.
Yes, yeah.
Her, and then the some of the hostesses clearly had a thing for Majima.
Yeah, definitely.
And then neither one of them is like, nope. I mean, Majima though, no lady's ever gonna fully tame that man.
Right, yeah. And we got like so close in Zero. That was the thing. We got so close, and then it was just that was when Majima did that flip, where we found out exactly why he became the Majima that we've seen for the rest of the series.
Yep. Yeah, and of course Kiryu has the one love of his life who doesn't show up until Kiwami.
Right.
And then, well, stuff happens.
Yeah, stuff happens.
He really needs to get a love interest again. It's not going to happen in 6, I don't think, but...
Yeah, it's never going to happen. It's like... It's so sad because he's the type of guy that you want to see something really, really great happen to him outside of him just being that guy that's taking care of a bunch of kids that like pro wrestling.
I know. I mean, for goodness sakes, he raises orphans. Can't, some nice lady just enter his life and let him be happy? He had a love interest in Yakuza 2 that disappeared. Can't she come back?
Can't she? Please. Maybe they'll redo that for Yakuza 2 Kiwami.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because they are doing that, so
right.
Guess we'll see what happens.
And everything here.
Wait, I can't wait for that. I mean, because, yeah, Yakuza 2 Kiwami probably won't come out until 2019 in North America, but next year we're getting Yakuza 6 Song of Life, and that, unless they royally screwed that up and I just didn't know about it, that's probably going to be a contender for one of my best games of 2018.
Definitely.
I'm just predicting that now. But, yeah, like I said, Yakuza 0, very good game. Very good plot, pretty solid attempt at a prequel, but if I had to get into a couple things that bugged me, specifically it was most of the minigames.
Okay.
Well, that's not true. But some of the major minigames, like one of the probably the ones that bugged me the most were real estate felt slightly flawed. Like real estate was one of the better ones though. Like of the three I'm going to mention, it's still the best.
I just think to me it was a little same thing with Goro's Cabaret Czar. Mm-hmm. I just think they were a little too long-winded for me. That was like the biggest problem with them. They were just a little too long-winded in terms of trying to get from like point A to point B to point C. It would take 2 or 3 hours per each section.
Well, especially because in both of those, like they're your main source of income. Now, real estate, because it's passive, wasn't so bad, and plus the amount of money was great. But in the Cabaret Club, which I consider even worse, you have to stop the game to do it, and you get less money than you would out of the real estate.
True.
And Majima is your main source of weapons, which is even worse, I think, than the Cabaret Club, which is the weapon crafting, because it's entirely based on luck.
Right, that's true. That's very true.
Which is just obnoxious.
And not loot box luck, thankfully. Just luck in terms of...
Yeah, I know. Like,
at least you can save Scrum with this, unlike certain other aspects of gaming this year.
Yeah, but it's like probably the worst one for me, though, is the fact that the disco dancing is tied to sub-stories. Like, disco dancing in general, fun little minigame. I absolutely love the goofy intros. And, you know, the beats aren't bad for, like, video game specific techno disco.
Right.
Like, that stuff is all pretty good. But what I didn't like was that sub-stories were tied into it, because...
Especially a couple of the latter ones. Yeah, that were just ridiculous.
Because one of the points of pride I've always had in Yakuza games is getting all sub-stories, and that's insanely hard in Zero.
Yeah, it definitely gave you a work for your money because, especially that last disco one was enough to just really kind of throw your.
I probably spent over an hour trying to complete that last mission.
Yeah,
which really was too long.
That was really a rough one.
Like it's like the game was opposite of pity. It's like, oh wow, you're doing better than the AI has before. I'm just going to make the score for the AI 20 points higher than yours.
Yeah, that was an obvious thing. I was watching it and during some other times just to see like what I was doing wrong, and I was like, man, they're really cheating for the AI right here. It
really felt like it, which is just flat out the most frustrating thing about Zero.
Some of the things it was in terms of like the score, it wasn't added enough compared to how I was doing. Like it just didn't make any sense. So that was some old school arcade score in there, and they didn't even ask for quarters.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, in general, like I don't think they're necessarily just nitpicks, but I don't think they make it a bad game either. Like I said, it's still one of my favorite games of the year. These were some of the things I considered when I had to pick my favorite. And for my favorite, I gotta go for the one that when I beat it, I felt emotionally shaken in like a good way. Because, I mean, there's very few games that have made me have any kind of a major emotional reaction to beating it. One of the most infamous was Mass Effect 3, which basically made me hate the entire Mass Effect franchise for a while. I got over it, but I mean, that was probably, if that's one of the worst, one of the best in terms of positive has to be my game of the year, which was Persona 5.
That was my second.
Right? Play. Yeah, I know. Like it's pretty understandable why you can compare the two, because I mean, Persona 5 is more of an old school Japanese RPG, whereas Yakuza is an action adventure brawler open world sandbox RPG. So it's very interesting how they kind of contrast each other.
Right.
But Persona 5, because we didn't actually talk about this game, how to explain this simply? It's about a group of Japanese students in Tokyo who enter a parallel world using a cell phone app where they battle the evil within the hearts of various people around the city in hopes of improving the world.
Adults. Specifically adults. Gotta emphasize that.
That's true, because it's very much children.
All adults are evil.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the major theme of the game is rebellion and children rebelling against adults in particular.
Who have been corrupted by power and greed.
Yeah, because the Persona games, they always have certain themes to them. And Persona 5 was very much about anger and rage and all that stuff. And like literally at one point, the character says, it's like, it's no point trying to think about this anyway. Now go ahead and get angry.
Yeah.
Like the tagline might as well be "Get angry."
Yeah.
Which is why the prominent color for the game is red.
Yeah, definitely.
And
if anything, like for Persona 5, like I love it. Like I said, I was right there with me. That was the one I was battling with. It was either Yakuza 0 or Persona 5. And the one thing I got to give Persona 5 credit for is the best soundtrack of 2017 in any video game.
Oh yeah, I know some people.
Soundtrack.
Some people complained that the battle music got repetitive. I never had that problem.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It stayed in my mind for good reason. That was the thing. Like, that was one of those songs that just stays in my mind. And, like, if it pops in my head, I'm actually very happy about it. Like, that's one of those good battle themes to me.
Oh, yeah. And it's really saying something that, like, the soundtracks for the Persona games are so well crafted. And in this case, like, this game in particular, I really love all the kind of outside the box stuff they did with it. Like, combat's even more involved than it was in some of the, especially because they added secondary weapons to the primary in the form of guns. Like, every character has a melee weapon and then a projectile weapon.
Right.
And it's unique to each character. They each have their own elemental abilities. The main character can still shuffle through all his different elemental options through his various personas. But the dungeons are so well designed. And
so expansive.
Oh yeah, because
it's. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, it's each dungeon is very specifically designed, has so much going for it. It's such a step above the random dungeons from Persona 4, because while Persona 5 does still feature random dungeons in form of the subquests through the mementos,
right,
which is a sort of separate dungeon system. The main dungeons themselves are so interesting, and it just works so well.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. Like I said, Persona 5 is like probably the best JRPG I played in quite a while that didn't come from an old school system. Like, I did not expect it. I expected it to be really good, but I did not expect it to leave such an impression, in my opinion. Like, it was just a really great experience. And like you said, it felt fulfilling when you finished it. That was a great feeling. And that was the thing. Yakuza 0 and Persona 5, both of those games, when I finished them, I felt like, man, that was well worth the amount of time that I put in, which both of those racked up over 100 hours each, which is incredible to think that I never got tired of either one of those.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. Do you want to just move on to your most surprising?
Yeah, this is another one that was really tight. I wanted to originally say The Lost Legacy, Uncharted, because I just didn't expect it to be as good as it was. To me, it was like the perfect Uncharted game that you could have had without Nathan Drake. It was a great length, and it worked really well, but I have to go with Resident Evil 7.
There's a good choice.
Yeah, that was a completely change of pace. Of course, first-person perspective. You don't have a whole bunch of guns and weapons until pretty much later on in the game, but it's not the typical Resident Evil game, and they did it so well that it actually paid off. And to me, the first 2/3 of the game, I was actually very scared to progress in certain areas because I did not know what to expect. It was really a haunting experience. I'm gotta say, Capcom knocked it out of the park with that. And then to top it off, they have all the little DLC and everything that actually makes some of the stuff comical and interesting twists and everything else. I really have to say that, unexpectedly so, Resident Evil 7 is definitely one of my top games of the year, and specifically the most surprising, interesting game that I played all year.
Like you were saying later on, once you get all the guns and then you have plantable explosives and everything, I can see how it gets a little less scary, but even then, it's still intense.
Right, yeah, they up a lot of the enemies because they know that now you have the ability to fight back. So they up a lot of it. Like I said, they up the intensity. There's one section very, very late in the game where you are taking on hordes of things coming at you at one time.
Yeah,
and it's really a harrowing experience. Like, I did not expect that when it started happening. I thought it was going to be following the little voice that's trying to lead me into danger, and let alone I did not know danger was that dangerous.
What kind of interested me too was they had a couple of nice touches. Like, they had an homage. Well, I wouldn't say homage. It's probably more kind of a ripoff of the shotgun puzzle from Resident Evil 1.
Right.
But they did an interesting twist with it, because you take a broken shotgun to replace the shotgun, so you can get yourself a working shotgun. But later on, you can get a weapon repair kit to fix the broken shotgun. But you still need to replace the broken shotgun. So you need to find the toy shotgun to replace the broken shotgun.
And depending on what time you do it in the game, which is really interesting, because when it happened to me, when I started figuring out what I could do, to replace the broken shotgun with replace the toy shotgun with the broken shotgun, to get the broken shotgun, you could be being chased by one of the adversaries in the game, one of the main adversaries in the game. So I actually used the switch to close the door behind me to lock me in the room so he couldn't come after me. And I was just waiting for something to happen, and come to find out when I opened the door, he actually disappeared.
Interesting.
So, like, you have no idea when or where things are going to pop out from, or where they're going to disappear, or where they're going to appear, especially early in the game.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask, I can't remember, is there any way to upgrade your inventory slots in that game?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, yeah, because I remember...
You can use the coins to upgrade your stuff and get more inventory slots. And like I said, that was one of the main things I did very early on when I had the opportunity, was upgrade my inventory slots. Okay,
I must have forgot. Yeah, I couldn't remember, because I know the upgrades, because the coin upgrade system was interesting, because every time you go to, like, your main save zone and whatever, safe spot, you can use the collectible coins to open up a series of bird cages that have various upgrades, including inventory space, and then there's like a magnum in there.
Right.
Yeah, which gives you some of the best firepower in the game, etc. Because early on, you've got a knife and you've got a pistol, and even then, you don't always have the pistol.
Yeah, and then a lot of times it's very, very limited ammo. So you are taking your shots, and the enemies take a few good shots before they go down, even if you go for headshots. So until you get like later weapons that have a lot more firepower to them, expect to use up your stuff very quickly if you don't know what you're doing.
Absolutely. No, that's very much. Yeah, no, it despite all that, it's still not a ridiculously hard game, which I can really appreciate.
No.
So,
especially when you get to the later parts where you got your little arsenal started, you got an armory.
Yeah, and even then it doesn't go completely out of hand. The one I was probably going to go for most surprising. I thought about this because I was considering doing Horizon Zero Dawn. But I think the one I'm going to go with for most surprising is actually going to be PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Wow, okay.
Because it's an unusual. It might be an unusual choice, but consider this: it was surprising, not just because it ended up being a shockingly good game, despite like it's a very easy game to criticize.
Right.
But once you're playing it, you can really feel the addictive nature of it all, and its release so drastically changed the landscape of online gaming this year.
It really has.
I guess you could call it my...
It did what Overwatch did last year.
Yeah, like it's very much feels like... It maybe not most surprising necessarily, but definitely one of the most influential games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, like one of the other ones I considered was Breath of the Wild, because it's been a while since a game has so much wanted me to get a console. Like, the only reason I haven't gotten a Switch yet is I just don't think I have time to play the Switch as well as my PC and my PS4 at the moment. But I mean, at some point, I'm gonna give, and I'm gonna finally get that game. But I had to go with PUBG because of just how the PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG, just for people who aren't familiar with that term. It's a pretty common term though. But like PUBG, just such an influential game, and it's amazing how simple the concept is, yet how well it works just by adding in quite a bit of realism, among other things. Like, it's not still 100% realistic, because let's face it, basically no game is. But by just taking a person, making a parachute out into the wilderness, and then you have to find various guns which use realistic ammo types, and you have certain equipment and coverage, unless you get certain backpacks. You can get body armor to truly increase how durable you are. You can, and most telling is, you can hear when there's movement, and you have to really watch the horizon for movement. So suddenly sound and visual cues become more important than ever. Like, even more so than in the typical FPS, especially because it's one life and you're dead, and these multiplayer matches can easily last 10, 15, even 20 minutes. And once you're dead, you're out. Like, that's just the end,
that's it, right?
Yeah, it's like, and it can be as quick as a couple of sniper shots and you're dead. But even after that disappointment, just the excitement of the buildup of assembling your gear, thinking you have a chance, watching other players die, it's very addictive. And
which is surprising for you, because considering that, it's same with me, we're not big multiplayer online guys.
Yeah,
the fact that you've kind of fallen for that, it's really surprising to me as well.
Well, it's not even just me. Like, I wouldn't even say it's just necessarily for me. Just the fact that how much influence we see, and even, but yeah, like, I'm not a big online play guy. I mean, like, the game I probably played online the most in 2016 was Titanfall 2, which was not the most popular choice. But I would definitely say the online play was pretty solid, and just beyond that, though, just the innovation that it made is such a surprising twist that, like, for some reason this never occurred to people.
Right.
And now we have, a game that's really influenced a lot and unfortunately driven a lot of lawsuits, and then there's all the Loot Crate controversies and everything. But this has basically become, despite not really being a finished game yet, one of the
it just came out of alpha, didn't it?
Yeah, and even then, it's still not a full price game. It's still only like $40, which may or may not still be too much to pay for it. But I mean,
right?
It's definitely good for what it is. So yeah, I think I gotta go for that for my most surprising.
Oh man, I'm intrigued to see what your most disappointed is.
Well, you can probably guess. But you want to go for your most disappointing first?
Yeah, I'll go with mine, because mine is not as big of a deal as probably yours is, considering how much anticipation it was for it. For me, definitely has to be The Walking Dead: New Frontier.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, this season was rough. Like, and for those who don't know, I'm a huge Telltale Games fan. I'm a huge fan of the Walking Dead series on Telltale Games. So for season 1, gushed over it. Season 2, I liked it a lot more than I think a lot of people did. Season 3, the only reason I'm putting it in this one for this year is because it finished, of course, this year. And I was trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, and it did not pay off at all. It just was a very disappointing experience. I think the main reason is the fact that they built 2 games worth of story behind one character, and then that character kind of becomes a sub-character when the 3rd season begins, and then the promise of the final season. Of course, we're going to get back to that character. It's going to be all about Clementine, and just even the characters themselves that we were supposed to focus on really weren't the most dynamic or interesting. So, yeah, this was a rough season for the Walking Dead Telltale Games, and definitely one of the least enjoyable experiences I had in 2017.
Yeah, that is a shame. But I mean, Telltale's Guardians of the Galaxy just didn't get the hype that Batman Telltale or Wolf Among Us or Walking Dead did. I mean, we're hoping they'll bounce back, because Batman Batman Telltale Season 2 is getting a decent amount of hype, and people seem to like it so far. And then, of course, Wolf Among Us Season 2 should be coming out in 2018.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, especially 'cause it'll be interesting to see where they take it, because it sounds like it's not going to build on the quasi cliffhanger that they had at the end of the first one.
Right. That's the interesting aspect of it. I don't know if they're going to maybe act like it's a completely different universe or what have you, but
well, no, yeah, like they're flat out not going to follow up on that. Like they purposely left that ambiguous to kind of do a film noir thing. So it'll be interesting to see where in the timeline it's set and everything, because it's still kind of canonical within the Fables universe.
Right.
But I can understand your feelings. I actually didn't play New Frontier, so I can't really add much to this one. Because I didn't have the enthusiasm to play it to begin with, and then I do remember hearing early on you didn't have too many good things to say. I'm like, well, I'm kind of not feeling Telltale as much, especially since Tales from the Borderlands Season 2 probably isn't happening.
Yeah, which is really disappointing.
Because that, to me, is one of their best.
Definitely, hands down. I was surprised. You were telling me time and time again, like, it's one of the better games they've ever put out, and like I said, yeah, it's probably be good. And I was surprised by the end of it, man. That was one of an emotional roller coaster. It really was.
It's a toss up between that and Wolf Among Us and what was the other one? Walking Dead Season 1 for my favorite Telltale. Yeah. I liked Batman a lot, but it's not my favorite Telltale game. It
was a solid entry, and I didn't feel bad by playing it by the end, especially. I think it picked up after the first couple of episodes, but
the big twist was really good.
Yeah.
Of course, it's like, do I want to be Bruce Wayne or do I want to be Batman? Always be Batman, you idiot. Not even a question. Yeah, so going into my most disappointing... Man, okay. The original game was one of my favorite games of that year. I believe it was 2014 that it came out. 2014. So, in 2014, which was a game that also had South Park: The Stick of Truth,
right,
and Dragon Age Inquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Two games I quite enjoy. Like, I'll say bad things about the Mass Effect series. I will not say pretty much anything bad about Dragon Age.
Right.
Because I do think that's one of the better. That's become the better franchise with BioWare. But Middle Earth: Shadow of War, the sequel to Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor, which was my favorite game of 2014.
Yes, it was.
Oh, man.
You really held the banner for that one.
Oh, yeah. Just because, like, I had some problems with the plot of that game.
Right.
I'm not going to deny that. But the Nemesis system and the fluidity of the combat were two of the most impressive experiences I'd ever had in gameplay. Because, like, I couldn't recall a game where flowing between various fighting styles, hopping on mounted beasts, doing sneaky tactics, not to mention a stealth mechanic where you just kind of have to watch if you're not standing in line of sight. You know, there's not as much sticking to walls as in some other games. Right. Like, all that stuff worked really well in that game. And there was some, really solid different tactics you could employ, even the mind control and the power. The game balanced itself very well. I mean, it got harder as you got more powerful.
Yeah, yes, it did.
All that was so well designed. And then I really feel that Shadow of War just didn't seem to understand the balance thing.
Mm.
And I really don't know. I don't want to blame it on loot boxes. I really don't. Because, like, 2017, one of the biggest controversies has been the excessiveness of loot boxes in AAA games.
Right.
And I'm just going to go on the record right now. I'm sure some people will disagree with me. I don't like having to pay for microtransactions in full-price games. Like, this drove me nuts, not just in, like, this game. It drove me nuts, in particular, in Assassin's Creed Unity, that they kept advertising the in-game store while I was playing that game. It's like, it looks like you're under-leveled for this area. Consider spending some real money to make this area easier for you. And like, that level of obnoxiousness, it was really prevalent in Shadow of War, especially just because you could access the freaking loot box store from every menu. It's still not quite as bad as what I just complained about with Unity, but it's darn close.
It's still there. It's still right there.
And like, there's just so much less charm because you can just buy orcs. You can just buy runes. You can just, not runes, but upgrades. It's just, which is so frustrating because some of the core gameplay elements they added are still, like, the combat fluidity is still there.
It's still there. It's obvious that it's still a great game from a gameplay perspective.
Absolutely. They improved on some of the cool elements from the first game that I thought were underdeveloped, like the dagger throwing, and they added a phantom spear and everything. And but just, I didn't really like the plot of the new one, but I appreciated how they tried to somehow make it canon, and I appreciate that they tried to explore the canon, even if I thought they were in really dumb ways. But I mean, I had this problem with the first one, so I'm not going to get up in arms about the plot that much, but it's just the fact that the careful balancing, the careful investment, the gathering equipment, all that's just gone. It's now, because of the loot-based system, it just isn't the same at all. And it's amazing how much it feels like it torpedoes the game, especially because growth feels slower than it did in Shadow of Mordor. And it feels like the best way to get around that is, of course, loot boxes. And I mean, I understand that you can skip around, grinds by paying real money. Because I mean, they do this in other games, like GTA Online does that. You can just buy money.
Right. You can buy the shark cards and call
which takes away the achievement of earning enough money to buy one of the supercars. I mean, GTA Online, for goodness sakes, they just added a flying DeLorean. They don't call it a DeLorean, of course. It's a Deluxo. But it's a flying DeLorean that can hover over water, fly through the air, or drive like a car, and plus it has missiles.
Sounds like something GTA would come up with.
Well, it feels more like Saints Row than GTA, but that's beside the point. Like, my ultimate thing is just, you can it just doesn't even seem to understand that. It feels like you're just wasting your time if you're not spending more money to beat the damn game. Yeah. Which it really shouldn't feel like that. And it's
Well, that was the thing that turned me off. Once I found out about that, the last few hours and the way they set it up, I just gave up. I just thought, you know what? I'm not even wasting my time, because if that's the way they have it set up, this is not the game for me.
I did refuse to beat the game. I returned the game, which is something I very rarely do. I think the last time I returned a game after buying it so abruptly was Resident Evil 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Which didn't happen with Resident Evil 7, I just want to point out, which is a much better game. But yeah, it's just, it was draining. It crushed me a bit. I had to go back and play some more Yakuza Kiwami to cheer myself up. Because I mean, my favorite game type are RPGs and action games. Like, a game I didn't end up really considering for my top game, but I still enjoyed, was Uncharted Lost Legacy, which you and I both seem to quite enjoy. But yeah, in this case, it's just, I just didn't like it. Yeah. And part of it was just, it felt more like a grind than actual fun.
That's what this year is all about. If you can find something to grind at or get some kind of money at, you got a pretty much a good game. Like I said, Resident Evil 7, for example, didn't need it, and I mean, they could have easily implemented that, something like that. I mean, that's the thing, especially when it comes to upgrades and make it a little bit easier. And Kiwami, of course, I mean, with the Yakuza series, that's never going to happen, more than likely. But I'd never say never. But like you said, a lot of these games and just this implementation, this forcefulness of it all, where they just tell you, hey, you're struggling. Hey, we got an idea, but you got to give me a little bit extra money. And it's just, I don't know. It's funny, like, as happy as I am as a gamer in 2017, it doesn't make me excited about 2018 and what they're going to come up with certain games that you're probably looking forward to.
Yeah, at least Assassin's Creed Origins wasn't as bad with the loot mechanics and everything.
Well, I actually just got it from GameFly, and I haven't installed and I haven't played it yet. So Origins
wasn't bad. I mean, it was. I don't know if I liked it more than Syndicate, because I actually quite enjoyed Syndicate.
Okay,
but like I said, I hate the fact that real world money has always been a thing with these games, especially since Unity. Like, they've toned it down since Unity. And I think Origins is kind of an interesting twist on the series, because it almost feels kind of Witcher-like.
Okay.
In a good way. I mean, mostly. Look, the Assassin's Creed games have never been Game of the Year contenders for me, but they've always been enjoyable.
Right.
And this one I definitely enjoyed. So
Oh, that's good. I'm looking forward to it, then.
Yeah, you'd probably, if nothing else, the random hippo attacks will probably freak you out. But it doesn't. I'm hoping they'll learn from Horizon Zero Dawn, which kind of had a similar open world system, but they managed to make.
That was, to me, it was like in the same vein as Watch Dogs 2, which is incredible because I know Watch Dogs 2 didn't get a lot of praise, but I thought it was one of the better games of last year. And Horizon Zero Dawn kind of like took that next step where they had every implementation you would find in like a Ubisoft open world game and did it better than anybody.
Oh yeah. Well, it was the same thing with Witcher 3. I mean, Witcher 3 had a similar thing going for it as well. I mean, the only problem Witcher 3 had was how many quests and hunts there were, especially the hunts. Mm. I ended up skipping like half the hunts just because I didn't care.
Right, exactly.
It kept over leveling. But I mean, oh no, this game has too much content. That really screams first world problems. So before we close out on 2017 gaming, do you have anything else you want to add for anything?
Yeah, just some of the same thing like you said about Shadow War is the same thing that I say about a lot of the games I didn't like this year that I barely put any time in because of just how bad it was for loot boxes. NBA 2K18, a Need for Speed Payback, just really, come on, just really. But on the opposite end, this was the year where I had 2 Yakuza games.
Yep.
Persona 5, Injustice 2, which was awesome, Tekken 7, which is underrated, South Park, which is really good until the very, 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 very end.
Yes.
I hated that ending.
Fair enough.
But other than that, still good. Resident Evil 7 returned to form with that.
Yeah.
It's a great overall year for games that were marred by some questionable practices by publishers.
And we're not even thinking about like Nier Automata.
Oh yeah. Wow.
I know that would give like a lot of praise. I didn't feel like it was worth adding to my list, but I mean, I still thought it was good. I mean, it's just I don't know. Some people said it was a huge improvement over the previous ones. I thought it was pretty comparable, but that's
good.
me.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I won't fault people if they say it's their favorite game of the year.
Exactly. This is one of those ones that like I'm not going to argue with you if you say this is the best one of the series.
Yeah, sure. No real argument against.
Just everybody learn from Battlefront 2. You know, that's all we ask for 2018.
Oh yeah, that's
just learn from that.
Oh, Star Wars.
Speaking of which.
Yep.
Speaking of which.
Way to force it in there, James. You better Kylo Ren behave yourself. Wait, that one didn't work. So, as I'm sure millions upon millions of people have already done, well, not millions upon millions, but millions of people have already done, James and I saw Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. I don't want to, I'm not going to name specifically who did this. I just have a funny story about going to see it. So I went to go see it through my investment bank, which already makes me sound incredibly middle class, I know. But we're talking about video games on the internet. We're already middle class.
Yeah, we're already there.
So, like, it was a free screening for clients, and it was a pretty good deal. We went to an okay theater, like, they had nice enough seats, although there's a theater in town that has full recliners, so not best theater in town, but still good theater. We got full beverage, full popcorn, all complimentary. We go to sit down. I'm going with a best friend of mine who loves Star Wars about as much as I do. A brother of his who loves Star Wars way too much, I think, because he's constantly criticizing every little thing. And we're told we're going to see the whole movie, 2.5 hours, no ads. We get 15 minutes of ads because the theater screwed up. And remember, I went with an investment bank, and we saw an ad for a rival investment bank.
Wow.
Which really pissed the guy off who was hosting.
Wow.
But yeah, I feel spoiled because I got to go see it for free. And so that might color my opinions a bit. We'll see. So, James, I'm going to ask you first. What did you think?
Well, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, so I'm always coming in with a little bit lax attitude. But, of course, like some of the lore and everything else. And I felt that it was a solid movie. I thought it wasn't as exceptional as I think a lot of people put it over as. But I thought especially for 2.5 hours, it definitely didn't feel like that. That was one thing that I know we both noted in previous podcasts where, certain movies this year felt like they needed more time and certain movies didn't. I think this is one of those ones that it felt just perfectly fine at the time. And some questionable decisions.
Yeah.
There's some questionable decisions, but this is one of those years where I felt like, this is one of those movies, I should say, that I felt like they actually set up a trilogy without the second part feeling so lax. Like, it didn't feel like it was just an unnecessary feature.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was one of the biggest advantages when it comes to The Last Jedi. I actually felt like it actually had some meaningful moments that made it a necessity to watch this instead of just going on from the first action-packed part and then a lull in the second act, and then we have the finale of the trilogy, which is the grandiose moment. I think we had some pretty grandiose moments here.
Absolutely. So we're absolutely going to get into spoilers because it's been weeks now. So the spoiler-free stuff, I'm going to call it right now officially over, but I'm going to make some basic thoughts before we get into spoilers. Okay. So basic thoughts. First of all, I did quite enjoy it. I don't know if my opinion on this is going to change, but I think I enjoyed it more than Force Awakens.
I agree.
And it's a toss-up with Rogue One because they're two very different movies. Mm-hmm. Because Last Jedi focuses a lot more on character. And, I mean, one of the main criticisms of Rogue One is that there's not a lot of character on display.
No, it's more action than anything.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if you want movies that have a lot of character, well, that's not the movie for you.
Right.
Because even the more in-depth character stuff is pretty stock.
Yeah, it's very, very shallow.
Yeah. Thankfully, they didn't make it too terrible in that respect. But there's characters I definitely wanted to learn more about. And, in this case, I would definitely say I liked it more than Force Awakens. I think part of the problem I have with it I love the storyline that Rey and Luke go through.
Mm-hmm. That's part of the movie.
Yeah. And let me guess, weakest Casino?
Very much so.
Yeah. That's pretty much universal, and I totally agree. I mean, sometimes there's reason stuff is the most common things being said because, well, it's probably true. But I love the theme they were going for. Like, I really felt like this was, for the most part, the best we could have gotten out of a bad hand that was dealt to it. Because I think that Force Awakens, because of how awkwardly it ended, really kind of screwed this movie over. And despite
it really put it in a bad position. It really did.
Because, I mean, like I said, there's stuff about Force Awakens I really loved. But one of the most annoying things is I hate that it just kind of stopped.
Yeah.
And I mean, part of that is probably just because of how goofy we need to find Luke Skywalker, but he's hidden on an island and he doesn't want to be disturbed.
Right, he doesn't.
Why is there a map? But I mean, we're going to question some stuff about this movie too. So, but yeah, considering how that movie ended, I think they did more or less the best they could have done. Well, also, like, they do ape Empire Strikes Back thematically in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
Not in all of them. Oh no, not in all of them.
Oh no.
Oh man, the surprises this movie had, I really loved. And
did you like the burning surprise that we had a little bit later in the movie?
Yeah. I originally I felt a little split on the decision, but eventually I think the top won me over.
Yeah.
Okay, I might have forced the joke a little bit too much with that last bit, but I had to get split in there. So, okay, we're going to get into spoilers now. So, first of all, talk about the scene that Mark Hamill himself has made fun of. Luke drinking the milk.
Yeah, that was odd.
You know what it reminded me of? Okay, so just to clarify for people who haven't seen the movie, but for some reason are listening to a spoiler cast, early on we see Luke on the island, and I actually predicted his first line of dialogue. He tells Rey to go away.
Yeah.
I told my friends, like, I really hope he says just like, go away.
Yeah, it's very simple, straight to the point.
Yeah. I didn't. He says that later on, but I thought he was going to say it to her on the cliffside, so I was still slightly wrong. But I nailed the dialogue, and I just love the fact he's like he gets handed the lightsaber, the sword of Skywalker, and he just tosses it away.
Yes,
it's like I don't need this piece of crap. Why did you bring this back? Because it was really weird.
I'm in a self-imposed exile here. Do you think I want to see anything of my past?
I know, this is the whole ludicrous thing about this whole plot, and like Luke blatantly points it out, and I'm just like, oh, thank you. He goes. At one point, Rey is trying to learn the Force from Luke, and Luke is just like refusing to talk to her. And at one point, he just goes, and we see in way too much detail how he survived on this island for so long.
Yes, like we just see these creatures just randomly, lounging and doing their thing, and then Luke goes up to one, and it's obvious that this creature has kind of like an udder sac, but it's not extended like a cow, and he just starts going away.
He milks it, drinks it, lets the green milk drip down his beard, and I swear to God, I thought he was going to quote Rip Torn from Dodgeball. It's sterile, and I like the taste.
He gives a smile like, yeah. Good. This is fresh. This is fresh today.
It was like Mark Hamill himself made fun of it on Twitter. Well, not directly. Somebody tweeted a picture of a Star Wars Kenner toy box, which is like Last Jedi Luke with milking action, and Mark Hamill retweeted it.
Oh, that was so out of nowhere. And
then the giant harpoon he uses to fish. It felt like something out of Dragon Ball.
It really did.
Not Dragon Ball Z, just Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball. Again, like literally old school Goku Dragon Ball, like Master Roshi is now Yoda.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but like his like Mark Hamill apparently originally was really worried about how Luke was going to come across in the movie.
Right.
Because he's this bitter old man who's just kind of living in an island and like hates the mistakes he's made in the past, but Mark Hamill plays it so well.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, I understand his criticism of the overall usage of the character throughout the movie, but the way he did it, you wouldn't think. Like, he just did such a marvelous job of presenting old man Luke.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite points was Mark Hamill himself commented for Force Awakens, the scene where the lightsaber flies out of the snow and like someone's about to fight Kylo, and he's like, oh, right, this is where my character enters the movie. And Rey picks it up. which speaks, this movie thankfully does kind of address the fact that Rey is very powerful in the Force.
Right.
It's not the best explanation, but you know what? If you're still... They gave it some lip service. They have some excuse for why. It's not enough for you at this point. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Because we really don't need more exposition than this. Yeah. You have imagination, use it.
That's it.
And,
then by the end of the movie, she embraces that and learns. So you embrace it too.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
Besides, I can't waste all my nerd rage on Rey having powerful Force abilities. I have to worry about other stuff that can induce nerd rage in me later in the movie. But yeah, so her whole storyline is, learning the Force from Luke, generally becoming awesome. And once again, we have the weird time scale thing like we did in Empire, where it's not clear how much time is passing.
Yeah, we have no idea what's going on.
Because she left to go see Luke days before the big thing with the Resistance, not Rebellion.
Resisty.
I hate the name change. It's so pointless.
Every time I heard it, all I could think about was that episode on Invader Zim. It's the Resisty now.
Yeah. It's if there's one thing I don't like about the sequel trilogy, it's just, they're not the Rebellion, they're the Resistance. It might as well be the same thing.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
It's not like when it was the new, the Republic, the old Republic and the Separatists. I mean, that was different. Say what you want about the prequels. Those felt slightly different. And then, of course, the First Order, it might as well be the Empire.
That's it.
Especially with how they opened this movie, where because they blew up the Republic in the last movie, it's one of the weirder plot points of the last movie.
Yeah.
Just saying. The Resistance is now basically the only people that can stop them from controlling the galaxy. I'm like, so they blew up 4 planets and that's the end. I mean, I understand that's the equivalent of someone nuking Washington, D.C., let's say London, and let's go with Moscow. Like, it's the equivalent of nuking all three of those at once, which would definitely destabilize the government, the world governments a bit, but...
It's not that much damage, though.
No, I mean, I refuse to believe that all major government people were there, so no other... it's one of those sense of scale things that is a problem with Star Wars, like how 1 million troops really isn't enough to defend a galaxy.
Right.
Star Wars has a weird sense of scale. This has always been a thing. But, Rey's journey, I think, is really good, especially when Luke starts to teach her, especially when he dicks with her a bit like Yoda did. Yeah. Reach out. Feel that? That's the Force. I am willing to bet Mark Hamill loved doing that scene.
Yeah, you know he did.
Well, he also did photo ops, too, where he was riding Rey's back like Yoda.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that wasn't in the movie, because that would have been too goofy.
Yeah, that would have gone... Well, I mean, milking Luke's old farmer Luke. I don't know.
But I don't want to get into one of the things that happens with Rey until we talk about some of the other plots. So, well, that's going on. The main plot with the Resistance is that they're fleeing from the planet they were on last time, and they come under attack by the First Order.
Right.
And we quickly see Finn wake up really fast.
Oh man, that scene. I was going to ask you about that scene.
I think I'm ultimately okay with it, but I was just more surprised. They put him in a coma and then he just immediately wakes up.
Exactly. That was the thing that shocked me.
The comedy in the scene was fine,
right? But it was just really weird. I did not expect it to happen that quickly. They was thrust him on screen the first time you saw him. I was expecting at least some build up to his epic wake up and let's get back to work. And
I mean, that's a character that is frustrating. I'm not really that frustrated with Rey. I'm really not. Especially now with this movie out, I think I'm more or less satisfied with her character and where she's going.
I'm perfectly fine with her being the star of the show now.
Finn, I still don't entirely know what his point is.
Yeah. This movie did nothing to help his cause.
Not really, it informed his character, but it still didn't give him really much to do.
Right.
That's really the problem. He's got a lot of personality and character, but he doesn't do much. Because, okay, to go over, I'm just going to go over or do you want to? So I've been talking a lot over this segment.
No. I just you give the lore here. I love the reactions because I'm on the same wavelength with a lot of those.
It helps that I'm trying to make it comedic, and I do love hearing you laugh.
Yeah. There you go.
See, we're right now. That made me happy. All right. So they attack, and there's stuff goes on, including a Poe ignores orders. Poe Dameron, who, by the way, has one of the best dogfight sequences in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, that was an incredible sequence.
He attacks an Imperial, I'm just going to call it an Imperial Dreadnought, which is one of the biggest ships they have. That's
only in the movie. This is a great way to kick off the movie.
Yeah, this ship is essentially the equivalent of a battle cruiser from StarCraft with a Yamato cannon, which can instantly destroy another enemy flagship.
Mm-hmm.
Its guns are not Death Star powerful, but they're that will blow up most enemy ships.
That will take you out easily. Yeah,
and so so Poe attacks against orders, and they do a bombing run, introducing a new ship that we hadn't seen before. I thought it was going to be called a T-Wing, but apparently it's a Star Fortress, a play on the Flying Fortress B-2s from World War II, which makes sense because that's what the interior of the ship kind of looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And a random, never before seen character who we actually see quite a bit of her story before she tragically suicide bombs the Dreadnought, taking out the Dreadnought, doing major damage and plot relevant damage to the Imperial fleet,
right.
Which is almost immediately undercut when the Supreme Leader's flagship shows up.
Yeah.
Which is bigger still, but it lacks the giant F-off cannons of the Dreadnought.
That incredible ominous feel when you see it come on screen.
Oh yeah, it works really well. I mean, this is why you don't need Death Stars. You can just have giant ships. I mean, that's a trope that's never getting old. It got a little old in Star Trek, but I mean, all the bad guys had giant ships in Star Trek. It just got ridiculous. But yeah, in this case, the Emperor's flagship shows up, so the ships have to run the hell away. And then we get the big reveal: the enemy's new MacGuffin, the plot convenient equipment is a light speed tracking device, which means you can't just go to light speed and no one can find you. Which, I'll give them credit for this. It's more interesting than just another F-off super laser.
Exactly.
I mean, it's still kind of convenient that they cooked this up, and it's like
out of nowhere. Like there's no talk of it or any idea that this is even possible. But
plus it's General Hux who.
Right.
Okay, I need to share this. This is going to take us. We're going to go over time. I'm sorry,
but we're trying to make this quick here.
General Hux, he's such a weenie, and early in the movie we see the captain of the Dreadnought. And the captain of the Dreadnought's like a way cooler officer just in his few scenes.
Yeah.
And then, like, Hux, here's my theory. If you remember in A New Hope, there's a guy during a council of the Moffs who like, quickly starts trash-talking the other guys, and then when Vader pipes in, talking about how Death Star is insignificant to the power of the Force, he's like, you don't threaten me with your Force talk, Vader. Your pathetic religion hasn't allowed you. And then Vader just starts choking him. I like to think Hux is the guy who's being choked there, his son.
Oh.
Which explains how this little weenie can get to such a powerful position.
They did follow-up of him just... And that's the only way he could get it.
Yeah.
Through heritage.
I really think that's what's going on with Hux. I mean, I haven't read any expanded material on Hux or anything like that. That's my theory on why this guy is so important.
Why he's so important, but he's so pathetic.
It's either that or the universe has a weird love-hate relationship with gingers, because he is a redhead.
Right.
And we haven't seen too many redheads in this series. So like, all right, we're going to put you in a position of power, but we're going to make you humiliated all the time.
So we know what J.J. Abrams is about now.
Yep. The ginger community. God's cruel joke.
That is his thought process from now on.
I'm also technically part ginger because my beard is very red when I grow it, so this is partially self-depreciation. Just going to put that out there. Anyway, so yeah, they're able to track the fleet for light speed, which leads to this. It's convoluted no matter how you slice it. The Rebel fleet is escaping from the Imperial fleet, and they're outside the range of basically all their guns. Like all they can really hit it with is some kind of like space mortar laser, which still isn't enough to stop the ship. But they can't go to light speed again without risking being tracked again. And they can't, and since light speed usually requires more elaborate jumps, they can't just light speed in front of them of their predicted path without potentially having them turn. Like a lot of the contingencies are kind of are like very briefly addressed.
Yeah,
but they have to go through it quick because otherwise all the logistical problems of the scene will just get ridiculous.
Right.
The basic point is it's essentially a convoy situation where they're constantly being shot at, but they're not really until they run out of fuel, they're not in any real danger.
Exactly.
Because when they get closer, that's when they'll get screwed. But because of the way the ships work, their ship is technically somehow faster, but not fast enough to get away, even at sublet. I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't fully explain. They just kind of gave you that. Just trust us. Just go along.
Yeah. Look. If they got into too detailed an explanation for why this was happening, the movie would be even longer, and it's already 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it'll be one of those situations where we'll be just picking apart everything.
Yeah. So you just got to roll with it. So it does lead to a weird ticking clock though, where they have 18 hours until they're screwed.
Yeah.
And before that, so actually let's touch on Finn and Rose, and then we'll touch on Mr. Kylo. And everything that happens with him, which will tie into something else.
We'll close out with that.
Yeah. So real quick, Finn and new character Rose, who is the sister of the bomber pilot or the bomber person who died.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess to make us understand why she's grieving.
Right.
Because it does inform her character a bit.
Give you a quick explanation as to who she is and her connection to the whole story. So
yeah, the two of them are sent off by Poe to try and find a way to desperately hack the lightspeed thing. So they go to a casino planet, which is essentially planet Monte Carlo, or Monaco, I guess. Monte Carlo and Monaco, I believe, are the same place.
Yeah.
So they go to this, and this place was both well designed and kind of goofy because, it's everyone wears white.
Yeah, they gave a few comedic moments throughout the movie, but it was like right here, this is where they went overboard.
Yeah, because
the
movie.
They just went all out with trying to make you laugh at certain points that really weren't necessary.
Oh yeah, because the mission just flat out fails immediately because they park just on a beach,
right?
And that gets them busted, which does fit into the theme of the movie. Because one of the themes of the movie is going in half-cocked, just trying to be a hero. Can blow up in your face, which happens repeatedly. Like Poe's big bombing run at the beginning of the movie does succeed, but it takes out a lot of their fighters, which is a major problem. And plus it makes it so they can't leave, which is potentially a problem for what happens later, which we'll get into. Finn or Rey just rushing in to try and use the Force leads to some serious dark side temptation, which is why Luke is freaked out. Luke trying to do something, which we'll get into in a moment, leads to him royally screwing the pooch. And then in this case, Finn and Rose just charging in to try and find the code breaker leads them to be arrested and basically failing their mission immediately. But they happen to meet Benicio del Toro, who's not the guy they came to meet.
Right.
But ends up being amazing. So they end up escaping the planet with him. And oh man, Benicio del Toro, his character was great.
He really was.
But we never got his name.
Yeah, it was
He's just the code breaker.
He's just the code breaker.
I know, which I don't know if that's a bad thing because
I was actually looking down just to make sure. And he was just the code breaker.
I'm telling you. He just imbued the character with so much personality and everything. He was just wonderful. And so their big thing is they're going to go and try and break into the Emperor's flagship to disable the light speed tracker, which can only be on the flagship because of how big the ship is. Mm-hmm. Like I think they said they could have put it on a dreadnought, but the dreadnought got destroyed. They don't have a dreadnought that can get there close enough, etc. Like that's one of the nice things is because they blew up the dreadnought. It's like, well, they don't have a way to just destroy the rebel fleet immediately, and they don't have another way to track the hyperspace thing. So, but yeah, they break onto the Emperor's flagship to try to disable it, and they get caught before they can do it.
Before they could do anything.
Rendering their mission entirely useless. And then to cap it all off, Benicio betrays them and tells the enemy more important information. So as a result, Finn and Rose's plot, which is very character-focused, has no real payoff.
Exactly.
There's a little bit of payoff later on because they meet some orphan children, and one of the final shots in the movie is one of these orphan children using the Force.
Yeah.
And it actually kind of a subtle scene.
Yeah. Like if you don't pay attention, you wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah, but it does help embody the idea of hope. Right. But it just
especially with Skywalker's conclusive speech. It really ties into the whole hope. There's still that one bit of hope that we have against good old Kylo.
Yep. Yeah. So getting into one of the better plots of the movie, Kylo Ren. Holy shit!
Wow. They
really redeemed his character.
Very much so. Like, I want this guy now to be the top guy, and thankfully they're going with it.
Yeah, because it's funny because in his first scene, he's wearing the stupid helmet, and Supreme Leader Snoke just tells him to destroy that stupid thing. So he does.
This emasculates him.
And he just kind of points out you've been a bit of a weenie. So we get a Kylo who's still whiny, but he's less emo.
Right, and now he's bloodthirsty now.
He's just more of a
to prove himself.
Yeah, like you feel more invested in the character. He doesn't feel as like an impudent child who tried to change his name to sound more extreme.
Right.
And like we get great including one of the best and worst moments of the film when he attacks the rebel fleet. He takes out their shipyards, which kills random rebel female pilot who was kind of interesting. Sorry to see her go.
They did this extreme close up, like as if we were supposed to be very emotionally invested in this person, and no.
The closest we were was the fact that she was flying the only A-wing.
Right. Like, it's just really weird.
Yeah, but whatever. Well, Poe clearly cared about her.
Yeah.
Maybe an expanded universe book will reveal that they were secret lovers or something.
Connection.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, so that the hangar gets blown up, and then he goes to attack the bridge where Leia is, and he doesn't do it.
Yeah, he can sense her.
But in a continuing theme of the movie, which is just because the hero doesn't do something doesn't mean someone else won't do it instead.
Right.
Which happens quite a bit in this movie.
It really did.
It's what, like, people said that the movie adds some interesting realism to this movie. This is one of the ways I think they did a good job at that. For all the goofy.
Well, how would he tell anybody else at that moment to stop attacking?
Yeah, he doesn't tell the people on his wing to stop attacking, so the other TIE fighters shoot for us, killing one of the greatest characters in Star Wars lore. Admiral Akbar dies.
Yeah.
Guess what, Admiral Akbar? It was a trap. You couldn't stop it. You're dead.
It's it.
Rest in peace, Mon Calamari Fishman. But then we get the Leia scene. Okay, James, you want to try and explain this?
Yeah, I don't know, like I'm only assuming the Force somehow saved her.
Yeah.
That's the only explanation I can come up with, like some kind of space force that she embodies. I really don't know, because when it happened, I was amazed. I was like, wow, that's how they killed it off. That's how it ended. Yeah, and then the hand starts moving.
Yeah.
And to me they ruined a great moment, honestly, because she was important to the rest of the movie, but it wasn't even. But if you like eliminated her roles from the rest of the movie, I don't think it would have mattered that much.
No, yeah, Leia, Superman force flies.
Yeah,
with the power of her Kryptonian force son. I don't know. She flies back to the ship, but then she immediately goes into a coma, and then Laura Dern's character, Admiral Holdo, takes over for most of the movie,
right,
and butts heads with Poe because she doesn't feel like explaining her plan to Poe for some reason.
Yeah, that was to me the weakest part of the movie overall, was the fact that she had ample amount of time to explain herself and just never bothered.
Yeah, I never fully understood why that was. Was it just because he was demoted?
Character conflict for no reason.
Yeah, because I mean, he clearly had a lot of influence with the crew. I mean, because he doesn't know what's going on, he leads a mutiny.
Right.
Which leads to one of my favorite moments, which is repeatedly having people who know better smacking down the people who don't. Like,
exactly.
In this case, like, if it wasn't for the fact that Luke does this to Rey later on, it would almost entirely be women on male violence too. Because Leia shoots Poe with a stun blast.
Yeah.
Rose hits Finn with a stun rod.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, but yeah, Luke quickly schools Rey. So it's just, the protagonists, the three main protagonists, if you consider Poe, Finn, and Rey the protagonists, they all get schooled by someone else.
Yep.
And in this case, so yeah, Holdo's big plan was to evacuate to an old rebel base from 30 years ago, which is on a salt planet. But because of Benicio's betrayal, they have to launch a desperate last stand, which leads to one of the best moments in the movie.
Yeah.
A hyperspace jump through another ship.
Wow, it was an incredible sight.
There's no sound. They took away the sound, which is jarring because in Star Wars, there has been sound in space.
Right.
Like, I know realistically there's no sound, but in this case they took it away for a moment.
They took it away and just let that moment settle in. It was an incredible piece of cinematography. I gotta give him credit for that.
Well, if nothing else, Rian Johnson, or Ryan Johnson, however it's pronounced, he is a very good cinematographer.
Right.
Because this is the guy who also did, like, Looper, just to name one. So, you kind of knew what you were in for. And, yeah, so Holdo takes herself out to cripple the enemy ship, which is good because Rey, the entire movie, has been chatting with Kylo Ren through the Force.
Right.
Through really cool minimalist scenes where they're literally just showing shot, reverse shot on two different sets. But because of how they film it, it looks like Kylo and Rey are actually speaking, which leads to Rey being brought before Snoke, Snoke being like, this is my plan all along. I was going to link you two so he could now kill you and take his place as the best of the Sith. Problem is, Kylo Ren has grown very fond of Rey.
Yeah.
And quickly realized that Snoke, this character we have basically no investment in, despite being the new main villain.
Just being the guy now for villainy.
He's walking around like Hugh frickin' Hefner in a robe. and like he's clearly like powerful because he shoots force lightning. He's got very powerful force telekinesis.
And he punked out Kylo pretty early in the movie too, so.
Yeah, like he was genuinely a very powerful dude. And Kylo decides to kill him.
Yeah.
And succeeds. cutting him in half.
And not only a struggle, it wasn't even a struggle, it was just a surprise kill.
Well, because Snoke's like, I can see he's going to kill his true enemy. And he doesn't even have a moment to go, oh shit, that's me, isn't it?
It's just me. Not even a moment of realization he was already dead.
Yeah. And at which point we get probably another one of the best scenes in a while, because Kylo and Rey team up to fight the Emperor's bodyguards.
Yeah, that was a great fight scene. That really was. Who
I guess might have been they clearly weren't on Kylo or Rey's level. Like because these two were basically, they established in this film that Kylo and Rey are basically the embodiment of the Force at this point.
Right.
Which is why they're both so powerful. Which, as far as an explanation goes, okay, they're opposites, they're bonded. This maybe gives some explanation for why Rey is so powerful. Sure.
They're the yin and yang to each other.
Yeah, and I mean, Rey's spent years doing combat survival stuff on her home planet, so okay, she's competent as a fighter. Don't need more explanation.
Right.
So they have this really cool fight scene where they take all the dudes out, and then of course it all culminates. Finn's about to get executed on the ship. Rey and Kylo are having a standoff, and then Holdo rams the ship. So everyone gets split apart. Finn and Rose are able to escape, and we get an epic last stand on the Salt Planet, which is when Luke Skywalker shows up.
Yep.
And everyone Sorry?
And aim all your guns on Luke.
He knows what's up. Now, it was probably were you disappointed that it turned out Luke was just an illusion and he didn't actually really do anything except distract them?
Not really. Like I thought it was a great little plan, because it just showed like Luke was just trying to be. Luke was one step ahead of everybody. It kind of ran into the theme of everybody not telling anybody a plan, and then you figuring out too late.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it worked out this time.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it was an interesting little fake out where Luke shows up, he's an illusion, and he just kind of holds him off just by being like, oh, you're nothing. And it turns out he's not there the whole time.
Yeah. Even his illusion was stronger than Kylo, which I think kind of hurt Kylo as an overall character. But still, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they should have given Kylo at least some type of moment of standing tall.
Yep.
Over an illusion. You know.
And then in the end, the strain is too much, and Luke disappears.
And they give you a false death too. That's the worst part to me. Was they gave you that false sense, okay, maybe he might be able to come back. Nope, he's dead.
Yep, he fades away, watching twin suns like he did in A New Hope.
Yep.
But I mean, he's almost
see the sun. Once you saw him see that sun, you knew it was over.
He's almost certainly going to be a Force ghost in the next one, though.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Especially since we got Yoda back in this one.
Yeah, we got Force Ghost Yoda, so this time it's gonna be Luke. Oh man, they're gonna come together.
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh, I mean, man, it's gonna be Luke and Yoda and Force Ghost together.
Maybe they'll even bring back Ewan McGregor as a Force Ghost Obi-Wan. No Hayden Christensen though. Never Hayden Christensen.
Oh, shout out to that one minimal scene too of once you realize that he's an illusion of C-3PO, recognizing him and not recognizing him.
Oh yeah. There's so many hints. Like you notice Luke looks a bit younger in those scenes.
Right.
He's not disturbing the ground. He has a lightsaber when it's established he got rid of his. There's so many nice little touches.
Right, and then once you realize, oh yeah, that was really good. Yep. And that was to me a really good conclusion to the movie, and especially considering the final scene between Kylo and Ren, where we had that moment oh yeah, number 3. When that trilogy ends, it's going to be an epic war between these two. I really look forward to that.
Well, what kind of fascinated me, too, was, one of the big things at the end is Rey and Finn finally get reunited, and it's clear the chemistry is still there from the first movie, which was one of the stronger parts. Those two generally, I think, did have good chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't like the fact that Finn said words like boyfriend, which always felt out of place in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I know what else is he supposed to say, but...
Just weird.
I know, but in this case, it's clear they've got probably a romance going.
Right.
But at the same time, Rose is apparently got a big thing for Finn because she crashes her ship to save him at one point, and even kisses him, but then falls into a coma because someone is always in a coma at the end of these movies.
Somebody has to be unconscious.
They really didn't need to do that again.
Yeah, but hey.
They could have just beaten her up.
Oh, there you go. Retribution for the dudes got beat up.
Well, yeah, no, it could have just been like they were flying in a ship together. Like it's like a snow speeder almost, but like not quite the same because remember they established that those were modified for Empire.
Well, they were trying to give Finn a purpose.
Yeah,
we could play. They tried to give Finn a purpose at the end.
And then the whole thing is like, no, you have to live. You can't just.
You have to live for some reason.
Poor Finn. Yeah, so now he's in love triangle with Rey and Rose, but at the same time, Rey and Kylo, they might be borderline romantic themselves, especially because Kylo approached her shirtless at one point.
Yeah, they were starting that. She was going to use her force somehow to convince him, but it didn't work. So
honestly, I'm fine with the idea with Rey potentially having a boyfriend on the light side and a boyfriend on the dark side of the situation. I don't know how to feel about Rose yet, though. I mean, she was a fun character, but
I just think just to me one of those one movie characters.
Yeah, she probably could have just died.
Yeah, they just took her out at the end of the movie. I was finally like, oh yeah, she was good for a one movie character, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, what can you do?
Yep.
Anything else you want to add?
No, solid movie. I really thought it was really good, and I'm excited for the third one. The trilogy.
If nothing else, they ended it with less up in the air. Like, obviously, we need to see how... Because Kylo Ren usurps Snoke, so he's now in charge of the First Order. They've established that there's more resistance forces out in the outer rim of the galaxy, so they can bounce back, and they can actually do a time skip.
Right.
Potentially explain why, sadly, Carrie Fisher can't be in the next one. She could just be off. She could just be off somewhere, or she could die off screen, which would suck.
They could just talk about it. Just say she's working. Like you said, she probably die off screen.
Yeah, or they just introduce a different commanding officer or something, which is fine. Because, we got Holdout out of nowhere, and she worked fine.
And we got to also admit, and one thing we got to notice, too, that she got blown out of a ship. So at least we could say, like, we don't know the extent of her injuries. Yeah,
that's true. I'm kind of hoping they do bring back Lando in the next one, though, to be their new commanding officer.
Yeah.
Just bring back Lando Calrissian.
That would be nice.
Who now runs a brewery and sells some of the galaxy's finest malt beverages. Galaxy Colt 45 gets him every time.
And it'll be played by Donald Glover.
God, no. I definitely liked it. There's definitely stuff to complain about, but I mean, that's going to happen with every Star Wars movie because I mean,
oh yeah,
when you come down to it, Star Wars is one of the most culturally important films to so many people.
Yeah,
I mean, like. There's only a handful of it's way beyond cult because I mean it's super mainstream.
Oh yeah, no, it's not, you could not consider it a cult following.
No, it's one of
it's a pop culture reference. Like that is big. It is big in every form. I mean, this is like that's the best way to put it is a pop culture reference. You put it right up alongside there with some of the biggest franchises in the world.
And you can reference multiple iterations of that franchise. Like, you can't make a reference to Jaws 4 and expect a large number of people to get it, but you make a reference to Jaws, people will get it. I mean, like, unless you're doing a show like Psych, where they'll reference the most obscure stuff they can think of. All right, well, on that note, I think we're going to call it. I've been Peter W. Dawson.
I've been James Bullock.